The evening sun sank slowly behind the rugged hills, painting the western sky in hues of gold and crimson. Dust rose from the trail as horses passed by, their hooves thudding softly on the dry earth. The small town of Willow Creek was quiet, too quiet for a day that was supposed to hold a wedding. Inside the old wooden chapel at the edge of town, a young girl stood trembling near the altar, her hands clenched tightly around a small bouquet of wildflowers. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the murmur of the few gathered townsfolk. "I don't want to marry him." Her name was Eliza May, barely 19, fragile but with eyes that carried storms. Her father, a stubborn ranch hand with debts up to his neck, stood behind her, his hat pulled low. The man she was being forced to marry, Henry Cobb, was nearly twice her age. A landowner, cruel in reputation, and known for breaking the spirits of both cattle and men. Outside, leaning against the wooden fence, stood a rancher named Luke Harding. He had come only to deliver supplies but had paused when he heard the whispers about the wedding. Luke wasn't the type to meddle in other people's business, yet something about the girl's broken voice tugged at him. As the preacher cleared his throat and began the vows, Eliza's voice broke. "I can't do this," she said, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Please, I don't want to marry him." The guests gasped, and the preacher froze mid-sentence. Henry's face twisted with anger as he grabbed Eliza's wrist. "You'll do as your father says, girl," he hissed. "You belong to me now." Luke's jaw tightened. Before he even realized it, he had stepped forward through the chapel doors. "Let the lady go," he said, his voice calm but carrying an edge sharp as a blade. Henry turned, sneering. "This ain't your concern, Harding. Go back to your cattle." But Luke didn't move. She said no. "That's all the concern I need." The air inside the chapel grew thick. Eliza's father muttered something about debts and honor, but Luke ignored him. His eyes stayed on Henry's hand, still gripping the girl. "Let her go, Cobb." Henry chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "You planning to take her yourself, cowboy?" Luke's silence was answer enough. The next second, Henry lunged, but Luke was faster. A single punch sent the older man sprawling across the wooden floor. The crowd gasped, women clutching their pearls, men stepping back as chaos erupted. Eliza backed away, her breath shaky, eyes wide. Luke turned to her gently. "You okay, miss?" She nodded faintly but said nothing. Then her father stormed forward, face red with shame. "You've ruined us, Eliza. Do you know what you've done?" Eliza's lip trembled. "I won't live my life as his property, Papa. I'd rather run away." Her father raised his hand, but Luke caught his wrist midair. "That's enough," he said, voice low. "She's not your debt to pay off." The man pulled free, muttering curses, but Luke had already taken Eliza by the arm and guided her outside. The crowd followed, whispering, as the sun dipped below the horizon. They walked until the chapel was far behind. Eliza finally spoke, her voice shaking. "You shouldn't have done that. He'll come after you." Luke looked at her, his eyes soft. "I've been in worse fights for less reason." She tried to smile, but her tears betrayed her. "I don't even know where to go now." Luke hesitated, then said quietly, "I've got a ranch a few miles west. It's quiet. You can stay there till you figure things out." Eliza stared at him, unsure. "Why would you help me?" He shrugged. "Because no one helped my sister when she needed it. I won't make that mistake again." They rode in silence under the stars, the night cool and still. When they reached the ranch, Luke led her into the small cabin beside the barn. It was simple but warm, a fire burning softly in the hearth. "You can sleep here," he said. "Ain't much, but it's safe." Eliza looked around, then at him. "Safe," she repeated softly, as if the word itself was foreign. That night, she couldn't sleep. The images of the chapel, her father's fury, Henry's cruel face, they all haunted her. But every time the wind rattled the window, she remembered Luke's steady eyes, his calm voice telling her she was safe. For the first time in years, she started to believe it. The next morning, Luke found her outside feeding the horses. "You don't have to work," he said. She smiled faintly. "I want to. It keeps my mind quiet." Days turned into weeks. Eliza found peace in the rhythm of ranch life, waking with the sun, tending to the animals, helping in the kitchen. Luke mostly kept to himself, but every evening they shared supper by the fire, sometimes talking, sometimes sitting in comfortable silence. One night, she asked, "Do you ever regret helping me?" Luke looked up from his coffee. "Not once. But it's caused you trouble," she said softly. "Henry won't stop." Luke gave a small smile. Let him come. And he did. One afternoon, Henry rode up with two men, dust swirling around their horses. I told you, Harding, he called out, dismounting. That girl is mine. Luke stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand. She made her choice. Turn around. Henry spat on the ground. You think you can hide her forever? She's not hiding, Luke said evenly. She's living. There's a difference. Henry reached for his gun, but before he could draw, Luke fired a warning shot that split the silence. Next one won't miss. Henry's men hesitated, then turned their horses. With a glare that promised vengeance, Henry followed. When the dust settled, Eliza came out, pale but steady. You shouldn't have risked yourself, she whispered. Luke holstered his rifle. I told you, you're not alone anymore. Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at him. I don't know how to thank you. You already have, he said softly. Just keep living free. Weeks passed, and slowly, the fear faded from Eliza's heart. She began to laugh again, to sing while she worked. Luke found himself watching her sometimes, realizing that peace had returned not just to her, but to him too. One quiet evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, Eliza turned to him and said, Luke, I don't want to run anymore. I want to stay. He looked at her for a long moment, the setting sun casting gold across her face. Then stay, he said finally. And in that silence, surrounded by wind, warmth, and wildflowers, both of them knew that sometimes freedom isn't found by running, it's found when someone stands still beside you, and chooses to stay.